in 2020, Netflix announced that they were developing an English-language adaptation of the international bestseller, The Three-Body Problem, by Cixin Liu. Now, Season 1, it's just about here. So is this going to be a new streaming phenomenon, or is it going to utterly disappoint? A young woman's fateful decision in 1960s China reverberates across space and time into the present day. When the laws of nature inexplicably unravel before their eyes, a close-knit group of brilliant scientists join forces with an unorthodox detective to confront the greatest threat in humanity's history. Now, I've not finished the novel yet, so I can't speak to how much that the series sticks with it, but the way this starts out, it's identical, and then it breaks to present the narrative in a slightly different order, at least in the beginning. Now, this didn't bug me because in the book, we start with a more linear progression through the years, and then in the series, we start in the past, then move to the present before jumping back into the past again. Now, this helped to engage me with the characters that we were going to be following throughout the show. The pacing for this sci-fi, it's a little strange because the show feels almost like two distinctly different types of narratives. The first, which encompasses most of the episodes, it's like a mystery scattered with video games and character drama. And then once the mystery is solved, the story shifts gears into something that's more scheming or pragmatic. And there's still a lot of character drama, but the mystery, it almost completely disappears, creating a noticeable slowdown. I was still totally into the storyline and what the characters were going through, but it feels almost like the show blew all of its intrigue before we reached the end of the season, and then kind of just limped along through those last couple of episodes. Now, my screening copies were works in progress, so some of the special effects may not have been fully completed, but I think the only real wonkiness that I noticed was in the first episode or two. And after that, the CGI and the effects, they become incredibly convincing and wonderful to watch. Now, one feature of the story involves this helmet-looking piece of equipment. I mean, not only does it look fantastic, but what happens when someone puts it on creates an immersive and fresh perspective on the world. And I love it that this informs the mysterious aspects and adds a captivating level of intrigue to the show. And with the special effects, we get to see new terrains and some freaky experiences. And then a new technology that is both astounding and wicked all at the same time are showcased. And there are many different applications for this tech, and we get to see some of them in play. So it's not just all talk about this thing and what it can do, but we're shown what it can do. Now, the showrunners for the series are David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, and they're the ones behind Game of Thrones. Now, they did a good job as long as they had source material. Now, luckily, there is source material here, so they can work their magic with the story. That also means that they brought along a couple of Game of Thrones alumni with John Bradley and Liam Cunningham. We've also got Benedict Wong, Isa Gonzalez, Giovanna Depo, Jess Hong, Rosalind Shao, Alex Sharp, Samar Usmani, and Jonathan Price. Now, I don't know if you're aware or not, but Cixin Liu, the author of this novel series, also wrote the spectacular story The Wandering Earth and its sequel. Now, that's a space epic that places humanity squarely in the center of the narrative, showcasing what can happen to a global society if they decide to work together as one. There's a similar premise in Three-Body Problem. We witness differing ideals and dogmas come into conflict, enhancing the emotional and philosophical impact of the story. There's also this interesting religious undertone at play, but not necessarily in the way you might expect. Now, the story takes us all over the world, and as much as I enjoyed the globe hopping, it does lead to a little bit of a scattered storytelling experience, which also then can create disjointed or seemingly abandoned story arcs. Now, this doesn't necessarily remove all emotional attachment to the characters, but it can make them feel forgotten, maybe discarded, when they were once major players. Now, something that could be of concern for everybody is, do you need to have to read the books in order to understand what the heck is going on here? Well, absolutely not. I mean, while parts of it do require you to stick it out, there are massive reveals and answers that are given that don't leave you in the dark as to what the characters are experiencing and where the story's headed. And I love that it doesn't present this right up front. I mean, instead, it just leads us along the path of intrigue and twists to then expose the truth before transitioning us into the new arc for the tale. And it's effective and enjoyable. And most importantly, it tells a cohesive story that makes sense. And even by the end of the season, while we're not given every solution to every topic that's raised, the main storylines are laid out to just whet our appetites of where we're headed, creating anticipation for the next phase in this story. And throughout the series, we're presented with cryptic ideas and messages. Now, this is awesome for the intrigue and the engagement, But what's not awesome is that the series ends without any full resolutions. And because we know how series, and especially expensive ones, tend to find a premature end, the dread of never seeing the completion of this, it's a lingering thought that just hangs over the production. Now, once episode 8 concludes, there's still so much that's left to address. I mean, this truly is step one. We know what's going on and have been told about the plan that's in motion, but that's where the next season needs to pick up. And ideally, we won't have to wait several years to get it, especially since, the source material, it's already written. It just needs to be adapted. I was drawn into both the mystique of the story and the performances. Because we get enough time with the main cast, there's an emotional investment that takes place naturally and easily. Some character moments are heartbreaking, while others are complex and filled with conflict. And while the dialogue, it is straightforward, it's not dumbed down or simplified, instead capturing the intelligence of the characters and then distilling it into conversations that are accessible but not unbelievable. And for the most part, the graphics, effects, and CGI, they're outstanding. And the finished product, it could be flawless. But even with my in-progress screeners, what we're shown is convincing and high quality. Now, I had a blast with the story's depth and then the themes of collective dependence within humanity and the value of loyal friendships, how they work to create a narrative that is both memorable and captivating. And even with a tonal and pacing shift that takes place in the middle of the season, the biggest hesitation I have with this show is whether or not it's going to be allowed to continue the story through its completion. There's no sex, some nudity, a lot of profanity, and some gnarly violence. I give Three Body Problem 4 out of 5 couches. Now, I wanted to give this 4.5 or even 5, but because I don't know if it's going to receive the green light for future seasons, at least the time of this recording, I'm going to be a little bit more conservative. It's certainly worth watching, and I do hope that you enjoy it just as much as I did. So are there any sci-fis that you've been watching lately that are just excellent? I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.